Correct. Okay, we've got Harbison here. So Harbison is a bloomy rind cheese. So you can see that it has this soft white rind, which you might find familiar looking if you've ever had a brie. Brie is the most popular bloomy rind cheese, just like champagne comes to mind first when we're talking about sparkling white wine. So we often sort of just casually refer to all of these cheeses as a brie style, but in the industry would be more likely to say bloomy rind. And it's because the flora that we're cultivating on the surface of this cheese literally blooms as it forms in the cave. So we would add the cultures to the milk, make the cheese. They're rubbery and firm when they're first made. We put them in a special temperature and humidity controlled vault. And if we got all of our make targets right, then we've created the perfect surface for the white Penicillium candidum flora to grow. It's in the mushroom family. And it imparts an interesting mushroomy flavor while it softens the texture of the cheese. So as I mentioned, it starts off sort of firm and bland and rubbery. And as that rind forms over time, you get a soft, gooey texture. You see Michael there scooping out the inside. And he's got it just right. That's exactly what I do. I stuck a knife under the surface of this rind and sort of filleted it back. So you kind of create a natural dish. And so the thing I haven't mentioned yet is how this is standing up straight on its own, which is a strip of spruce bark. So this is harvested from local trees, and it's literally the inner layer of a spruce tree. So we scrape off the rough outer bark, make an incision, we peel off what looks like leather. And it's this very aromatic, flexible material that they would use a long time ago. I think this practice originated in the Jura Mountains, to keep the cheese sort of girdled. So it creates a natural dish. As the cheese softens, it won't puddle and run away from you. And then also it imparts a beautiful woodsy nuance. It sometimes comes across as mustardy, and other times it's like what an oak barrel will do to a white wine. You get vanillin, more richness, butteriness, complexity, really. And we've designed Harbison. It's a pasteurized cheese because we have to sell it young in this country, but we worked with our French friends who developed a culture blend to mimic the flavor of a raw milk camembert in a pasteurized cheese. So we're really, with a pasteurized cheese, we're able to make a very deliberate complexity, whereas with the raw milk cheeses that we make that we'll try later, it's more like revealing the natural character of the milk and the animals in the land, more terroir driven approach. But this should be, a younger wheel might still be a little bit firm, sweet, creamy, raspberry notes. And as it becomes ripe, you're getting more roasted green vegetables, garlic, and cream, definitely, with those like maybe mustardy, woodsy notes layered on top.
So Gillian, tell us about the wine we paired.
Sure. So I thought that the Stag's Leap Winery Chardonnay really paired well with this cheese. I hope everyone is in agreement. Of course, it's subjective entirely. But the good thing about the Stag's Leap Winery Chardonnay is, well, we're sourcing the fruit from kind of cooler, more southern parts of Carneros and southern Napa Valley, so that we have some really nice bright fruit. There's only about 25% new French oak on this wine. The rest is stainless steel and neutral barrels. So it is subtly oaked, which, you know, I thought was a very nice compliment, because I think if the Chardonnay maybe were too oaky, it might overpower some of those really beautiful, delicate, nutty kind of nuances that Zoe was describing in this cheese. And this also has some pretty bright acidity too, which I really like, to contrast the decadent creaminess of the Harbison as well. In terms of the milk chocolate, I found this to be kind of the I don't know, softest, right? The creamiest of the offerings, and I do think that it works really beautifully with the Harbison as well as the Chardonnay.
I think that the Harbison brings out more of the fruit and takes away that little bit of acidity, and that oakiness just blends in really well with the rind, with the way that the spruce is in there, and they really kind of balance out. I thought a little bit about the oak, but I think that that birch is coming out, which is fabulous. What do you think, Zoe?
Nailed it, Gillian. I love oaked whites, particularly nicely acidic and not too oaky Chardonnays with Harbison. Like if I were to describe the ideal pairing on paper, this is it. And I agree with Michael. They balance each other. The intensity is a nice match. One doesn't sort of win on the palate when you've cleared your palate. It's they sort of finish out together, holding hands. Mm-hmm. And the oak and the bark do cool aromatic affinity things. You get something you notice more in each than together than you did when you try them individually.
So Pauline, tell us about the chocolate so we can get to that.
Yes. So for this cheese, we selected the Jivara 40% chocolate, which is really the iconic milk chocolate of Valrhona. Yeah, exactly this one. It's really well balanced between the cocoa notes and the milky notes, with also at the end some vanilla, nuts, and barley malt nuts as well, and really not too sweet for milk chocolate, we can say. And it's pairing very well with the Harbison, because from the cheese you do have like some juniper, woody, smoky notes from the bark. And those notes are like balanced with the nuts and barley notes from the chocolate. And so for me, it's really like a powerful and a remarkable pairing, bringing up like a uncommon flavor and in the chocolate and in the cheese. And it's really highlighting spices notes from the cheese and from the chocolate. So yes, a very surprising and nice pairing.
Gillian, tell us your thoughts here.
With regards to the chocolate and cheese?
Chocolate, cheese, wine all together?
I mean, it's unique. Like I said, and I totally agree with Pauline, like the Jivara is it's so mellow, it's not overly sweet or overly bitter. And I think it just kind of stands alongside really nicely. I thought it was great with the cheese. And for me, I didn't use any bread or crackers or anything, but I think a little crusty bread, I'm picturing just like being out in a vineyard somewhere with this chocolate, the cheese, the bread, a little bit of this lovely wine, and just making a meal out of that.
Zoe, your thoughts on all three?
Yes, but you've painted the scene. I can bring myself there in my mind. I like the notes from Pauline about the warm spice flavors finding each other with the cheese and the chocolate. Those two together, it's like the saltiness of the cheese and those funky garlicky notes are totally mellowed out by that chocolate. And by the way, this is a lovely milk chocolate. I often don't gravitate towards them because they can be cloying, but this certainly is very well balanced in and of itself. So together, it reminds me of some sort of like mousse, a milk chocolate mousse. And I'm happy for the acidity of the wine. I think I'm kind of looking for that to kind of cleanse the palate after such a rich bite together.
Pauline, you have anything else to say about the wine, the chocolate, and the cheese together?
No, indeed, the wine will bring some acidity and freshness to this pairing. So still very interesting.
Yeah, I find it just blends all well together. There isn't a conflict at all. And I think that's a lot of times when you look at a pairing, you know, what does it do? Well, you know, the chocolate is the chocolate. It pretty much stays the same. You really don't get any variance from that. The wine and the cheese kind of help each other bring themselves up a little bit. So I think that actually, when you put the wine and the cheese together, it can actually stand up to your beautiful chocolate just a little bit more, because it's pretty powerful. It's got a nice sweetness to it, but not overpowering. And you know, it's like what Zoe said, kind of like a chocolate mousse. You know, very, very, very nice.